So, David, I really appreciate you joining us today. It's such an interesting topic. But before we dive in, what actually is your product? What is ScreenCloud?
Yeah, so ScreenCloud is a digital signage platform, which effectively is kind of like a content management system for managing content on public-facing screens remotely. There's a lot more to it than that, but
Yep.
most of our customers are in North America, which is I ended up moving to California when I was still. I should say I'm not part of the day-to-day now on ScreenCloud, but I'm still on the board. Still got my shares. But yeah, so it's a digital signage platform, and it started off being aimed really at SMEs, but more recently, in the last sort of 5 years, it's really pushed towards, or maybe 3 to 4 years, really pushed towards more enterprise sales. So, and with a particular, particular specific niche, I guess, in companies with deskless workers. So, companies with people who aren't sat there on Slack all day having nice banter. How do they kind of get critical information? So that could be, logistics, manufacturing, teaching, medical, anything where you're not sat in front of a computer all day.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Fantastic. So you've moved across the product. How did that happen? How did you go from being a digital agency owner to being involved in a business that's now got north of 20 million of recurring revenue? How did that happen? Come on, tell us your story. I always love to hear a story.
Yeah. Okay, so we started our agency in 2004, and I think by 2014 we were done. It was great to start with, but a few things happened. One, we couldn't scale beyond. I think the most we ever got to was about £1.5 million in turnover, and however hard we ran, we just didn't seem to be able to break through that kind of ceiling. And then the second thing is that we just felt that we were on a treadmill of winning the work, doing the work, getting paid for work, and then trying to find more work to replace the work that we just, what it feels like. So, and at the same time, we'd been experimenting with products almost since we started. We were very early in on the App Store, we did pretty well there, and we built a couple of different suites of apps that we sold both of those, one to a private equity company and one to a kind of private purchaser. And I think it just, in our heads, we were like, there was just a seed there, like, hang on, is our future really in this thing that we're getting a bit bored of now, or is it in product? And, we seem to be able to create these products, and then we can generate revenue from them, and we're generating some kind of financial value that kind of seems pretty significant compared to the kind of amount of time and effort that we've put in. So we decided that in 2014, we decided we wanted to be a product company. We didn't quite know what that would look like and how we would get there. But our idea is that at some point in the future, we will replace clients with products. And then, long story cut very short, we decided eventually that the way that we wanted to do it was to get rid of our agency, sell our agency, and focus full-time on one product, which was ScreenCloud. So there was crossover. We'd launched ScreenCloud. We sold the agency. Once we'd sold the agency, when the three of us were just focused full-time on ScreenCloud.
And were all three on that journey? Was all three of you going, this is what we want to do? Was there anyone that was like, I still like a bit of owning a digital agency? Because when you've got three people, that can be quite challenging, bringing everyone on the same journey.
So the one thing we agreed on was that we definitely wanted to be a product company and not an agency. Right. What we didn't agree on was quite how aggressively we would do that. So the other two were much more gung-ho. Like, we had a bit of a war chest, and they were like, let's just kill the agency now and invest all of our savings into ScreenCloud. That's what we should do. And I was a bit like, oh, I don't know. I was, of the three of us, I was always a little bit more, conservative, I guess, with small c.
So you had a big accelerator of two people and a little break saying, I'm not sure.
Yeah. So I said, look, you guys go off and start ScreenCloud. Our CTO, you do that full time, because that was his concern was, look, if I keep getting dragged back onto client work, it's never going to happen. And I got that. Mark was kind of doing mainly ScreenCloud and doing a little bit of agency. And I said, look, I'll do a tiny bit of ScreenCloud, but most of my focus will be on trying to sell the agency and keep the agency going until we can sell it. So that's kind of how we did it. And I think we kind of we sort of gave ourselves a bit of a deadline, but also when we got our first VC, and he was like, so yeah, great, love the thing, but what's this agency? What's this Cogent Thin Martian agency? We had two agencies, weirdly, given that we were done with agency. We then bought another agency, but another story. What's this agency thing? And we were like, oh yeah, don't worry about it. We're going to sell it. And he was like, yeah, okay, interesting. He said, I need you to sign a side letter that says, if you haven't sold the agency by the time I put my money in, you'll close it down. So at that point, it was like, okay, we really are, you know, at that point, until that point, we'd been able to hedge our bets. Like if the product doesn't really work out, we can always go back to agency. But at this point, it was like, okay, we are definitely committed to this. And to be fair, at this point, ScreenCloud was probably doing somewhere between $250,000 and $500,000 in ARR. So we were reasonably confident that you know, this was the one that we should back, and it was the right decision, clearly. But yeah, having that sort of, that kind of sword of Damocles, you basically, there's no, because obviously when you sell things as well, you have to sign a non-compete. They weren't up for us to go, and if ScreenCloud had failed, we wouldn't have been able to go back and then start our own agency, for example, because you know, that wouldn't have been great for the people who bought our agency.
So you really were like the Vikings turning up on the shore and burning the boats.
It was at that point. Yeah, I always kind of felt like it was having a foot on either side of a brook. And, you know, at some point, you're going to have to step on one side. Otherwise, you're going to lose, you're going to start slipping into the middle and get wet. So, but having said that, you know, this is one of the things that I realized in writing my book, because obviously when I started writing my book, I then A, started working with other agencies, and B, started talking to lots of people. I realized there is more than one way to skin a cat, and people might not necessarily want to do what we did. They might see a product as more of a kind of a way of flattening out the peaks and troughs, you know, the feast or famine, or they might see it as, you know, both benefiting each other, the product being leads for their agency and the agency being leads for their product, if the two things are connected. I mean, our product wasn't in any way relevant to what we were doing as an agency, other than the ability to build a digital product. But yeah, so I've ended up seeing people do it in all different types of ways.
And that is quite interesting, because you've gone, right, we'll burn the boats, agency's gone, it's all product. You've seen other people say we can keep the agency, build products that are complementary to what the agency does. And looking at that, then why are agencies in a good place to do this? Why are they organizations that can actually build and drive and make these products scalable to the market? Is there anything you've seen there that they say, you know, if you're a digital agency, these are the skills you've got, this is what you can do?
Absolutely hit the nail on the head there, because I firmly believe that agency owners have superpowers that they probably don't know about, because, you know, when you've got these powers, you should kind of think of them, oh yeah, everyone can do this, but actually it's really true that agencies have you know, if you've run an agency, you've got a lot of battle scars and wounds and experiences that can help you. And I think, you know, the obvious one is just that entrepreneurship, you know, just that ability to kind of just make things happen, do multiple things, bring your A game to multiple things at the same time. So that's the first thing. Secondly, you might well have domain expertise. It depends. We didn't, but you know, a company I've been working with called Pixelate, for example, they are started as a digital agency and developed a niche around membership organizations. So they know every single potential thing that a membership organization could ever want in their website. And so they decided to productize it and turned it into a SaaS product called Ready Membership. And they probably know more about membership organizations than people who work in membership organizations, because they talk to hundreds of them, or they've talked to hundreds of them. So you've got that domain expertise that even people in the industry might not have. You've also potentially got like a team in a box. You probably, if you haven't built your own product, you've probably built products or bits of products for other people. And it's not like, if you think you're just an MBA dude, you just come out of an MBA, you worked in banking, you did an MBA, and now you want to start a business in membership organizations, let's say, what do you don't know the domain, you haven't got a domain expertise, you have to go out and hire a team, you know, you probably don't even know what you're hiring, that sort of thing. Whereas if you're an agency, you already have these people. You can build an MVP in your downtime. So it's not like you have to go and raise a shitload of money just to build an MVP. I mean, once things start happening, then you might have to think again, but you can get to that sort of first milestone in your downtime. And then, I mean, I think the other thing as well, I think, is if you look at just evidence around you, there are quite a lot of successful SaaS companies that originated in agencies. Like 37 Signals and MailChimp are kind of quite often the examples that are heralded. But there's a guy called Nathan Latka who he does a podcast, he speaks to SaaS founders, and he's done hundreds and hundreds of these SaaS interviews. I did it once, it's brutal. But he said recently, he tweeted something around that, if you look at most successful SaaS founders in their 30s, they were agency founders in their 20s. And I don't think you have to be in your 30s and 20s, but his point was there's quite often an agency background in there. And I think, it just lends itself to that sort of, that kind of, as I say, if you're some guy or girl that's just come out of business school or something, and you haven't got this experience, it's a lot harder for you to catch up. Some of the things that we just take for granted, some people would give their right arm to be able to. Yeah. The other thing, you might also have customers. You might, in Pixelate's case, using that example, they built websites for customers, for membership organizations. Flipping over to a SaaS program, kind of a bit of a no-brainer. They could just go back to their existing customers and say, even before they started, they probably already sold 20 licenses or something. That's a pretty good position to be in.
I mean, the three key things there I think are amazing. You've got your A game. You've done this multiple times for multiple businesses.
Yeah.
I always think it's similar for me. I've worked in hundreds of agencies where lots of people might have worked in 2 or 3, 5. Yeah. When you worked in hundreds, you've seen so much stuff. So I think that really resonates, and that experience that you can then bring to that and scale it much faster than someone starting fresh. Really, really interested. But that team in the box, having those people that potentially, we all bang on about utilization, but there's always people that have downtime to be able to utilize that to drive something.
Yeah, to experiment.
It's really amazing.
Yeah. I mean, the other thing that you do have as well, which can sometimes be sometimes come and hit you as well in terms of your mindset, but you are naturally capital efficient. So most agency owners have grown their businesses out of margins. They've not gone out and raised funding. I'm not saying everyone, but the majority of agency owners, if we've won a few more clients, we can afford to go and hire a few more people. That's how they grow. And especially now, investors are really valuing capital efficiency. If you're going to go out and raise money from an investor, one of the things they like to see is that you're, especially in today's climate, that you're not going to go and waste their money and fly first class everywhere. And as an agency owner, you just naturally, that's within your kind of DNA. If you cut yourself in half, you will have spent your life, being really careful with your money and making sure that you spend it in a way that you get the best return. So it can have a downside as well, but that is pretty good foundation
for investment. So it feels like agencies are well placed to tackle this. Yeah. Whether they're coming up with a product themselves and driving that into the market, or looking at things they do for their clients and saying, how do we productize this? How do we turn this into a SaaS model? So you look at this and go, this feels a bit like a no-brainer. Why are lots of digital agencies not going down this route? Why are we not seeing more digital agencies turning into owners of product like you guys did with ScreenCloud? So if that's not happening, then there's got to be agency challenges that makes them not do that. What are the things that you see that stop agencies doing this, going into that? As you said there, we got to 1.5 million. We couldn't get further than that. To get to a 5 million agency, we're doing 20% EBIT and making $1 million profit. You've probably got to employ around 50 to 55 people. So, and that's to get to 5 million.
Yeah.
So it does feel like, well, why are more people not doing it? So what are the challenges you see? What are the things that agencies go, this is just a bit too much?
Yeah, I think a lot of it is just inertia. It's like this idea. It's like, well, now's not the time, and there's a sense of I'm stepping into the void. It's a black hole it's a bottomless money pit. I don't know where it's going to end. So, and I think there's, is this a distraction and that sort of thing. I think one of the challenges that I see when I'm working with agencies is exactly that. It's kind of like, I've got so many ideas, I don't know where to start. So I think part of it is helping them kind of figure out, being brutally honest about whether a particular idea is valid. And actually, if you read my book, so I'm plugging my book here, there's a whole section on idea validation. It's definitely, you can do a lot of work without actually writing a line of code to figure out whether or not this thing has any legs. And we made some classic mistakes in our agency. We spent a year building a product, never spoke to a customer about it, and launched it. Ta-da! No one bought it. It was just a total waste of. So I think there's a little bit of a mindset change there with agencies that I've seen. I think partly because they know they do this for customers, and they kind of feel quite confident in their own ability to build stuff, but also they don't sort of maybe do their own. It's like, what's the cobbler who has broken shoes or something, or the plumber whose sinks don't work, taps don't work. But it's like they aren't brutally honest enough in themselves of doing the upfront work in figuring out whether things are valid. But also in terms of what it actually takes to launch a product. And I think quite often people, as I said, there's that sort of, I'm worried that this is a bit of a fantasy and I've got no idea how much this is going to cost me. And I don't, at the same time, maybe, I've got other challenges in my business. So it's kind of helping people to kind of go, okay, you don't have to commit £1 million or all your savings to this thing. Let's just break it into chunks of milestones. Like, can we get to an MVP? Yes. Okay. It's a yes, no milestone. Okay. Now we've got to an MVP. Do we think we can get 10 paying customers? Do you feel comfortable about that? Yeah, no. So if we don't get to 10 paying customers, okay, right, we've maybe spent a bit of time, but we haven't bet the house on it. But if we do get to 10 paying customers, how does that make us feel? Okay, well now and then you might get into the point of going, well, if we really want to get from 10 to 100 customers, I can see that there's an investment needed. So, okay, so then let's talk about investment. What does that look like? Can we fund it ourselves? Do we need to go out and externally get investment? Do we need to get a loan? So I think, getting people to kind of break it into sort of manageable chunks and think about it in that way, rather than thinking, oh my God, I'm going to launch a product and this is a massive deal.
That makes a lot of sense. I mean, it's a little bit, people who run marathons and things, you don't think of the mile 26, do you? You think of, I've got to get through the first 3 and then through the next 5 or whatever, and you break it into those, I guess, for your mind dealing with it, those manageable chunks for your own mental strength to get through to that. That does make a lot of sense. Believe it or not, David, it's 9:51. How quick has that gone?
Yeah, time flies when you're having fun. Yeah,
I know. I could carry on chatting to you all day because it's very close to my heart. This. I said I'm trying to finish around 9:55. So, David, it's been really, really good speaking to you today. I think you brought your passion for this, but also your own stories of where you've had success and where you've not. Really great for the A game. Before we let our guests go, we always ask one final question. So, what one bit of advice would you give a digital owner or digital agency owners that think, we want to do this? What would the advice be?
Well, I would say, like, if you look at me and my co-founders, I sound like a bit braggy. Oh, look, north of 20 million, and you talk about valuation. People, the valuation of a SaaS business is at the moment somewhere between 5 and 10x ARR. So you can see we've created considerable value, but there is nothing special about us. Like you talked, I'm just a norm. That we're not. We are outliers in the sense that we've done it, and a lot of agency owners haven't. But there's lots of outliers like us. So I guess my one piece of advice would be, if you've run an agency, you can definitely build a SaaS product. You don't need to be, you don't need to be Elon Musk or something like that. You've got all the skills, you've got all the experience, you can do it. Just, I think you have to be brutally honest with yourself about whether the idea is valid, and then really clear about what you actually want, and the plan of how you're going to get there. But you've got this. This is something that is well within your wheelhouse if it's what you want.